Hey guys, welcome back. It's your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I am here with a classic. You might have seen Gimpy's gal guess it the other day, and that, of course, is The Hunters. This is actually the 3rd edition, which I don't believe there's any difference between 3rd edition and 2nd edition. They really haven't made a whole lot of changes. I think this is just a reprint because this game sells, and I can see why. It's a great game. It's based off a series that I've played plenty before. You guys know, if you've watched any of my top 5s, that Silent Victory, which is basically the American version of the Hunters here, or this is The Hunters, which is early part of World War II. The Hunted, that was the problem with me keeping that straight in my head. The Hunted, when the Germans are on the back foot, is the latter part of World War II. So this is early on when they were doing really well with their U-boats. But like I was saying, Silent Victory is the Americans doing their U-boat, or not U-boat, submarine stuff out in the Pacific. Now, the 3rd edition does come with a few different things that some of the others didn't come with, like patrol maps and the free patrol versus historical patrol, things like that. The original version of the Hunters didn't come with the map that showed exactly where you were patrolling, and I actually really liked the inclusion of this, because that was one of the things that I liked about Silent Victory over the Hunters, is that yes, you can play it completely on your U-boat map over here, and you see, the patrol logs and everything. You can keep track of it the same here as you can here, but it just thematically feels better, seeing it on the map, kind of seeing actually where you are. It just has a better feel, to actually be on a map instead of just, keeping track over here. Now, my wife, very much, if she could see this game versus Silent Victory, would go, absolutely, I don't see any difference. And I get it. It's kind of like when she buys purses and shoes. I'm like, what do you need another pair of shoes for? They're not any different than your other shoes. And she would probably say the same thing about this, because, I see all the differences. She doesn't. So I get it, and I'm sure you guys that play war games understand, hey, it's different. You're playing German U-boats, and you're attacking Allied shipping in the Atlantic versus, the other games that you can play. But when it comes to this game is so much just that warm feeling, that going home to mom and dad for a home-cooked dinner, just that warm cup of coffee in the morning, just a good feeling, because it's like coming home. I can't describe it any better than that. Simple game that's just fun to play, and it's always easy to crack out, run a mission, something that has a relatively small footprint, because like I said, you don't need this, right? And I've got the counter tray sitting nearby just so I can have ease of access to extra counters that I need. But realistically speaking, all you need to really have sitting out on the table are these 2 pieces of paper. That's it. You don't have to have this. Don't even have to have a dice tower to roll. You can just roll in a cup if you're at a hotel or stuck at a desk somewhere. So this travels very, very well, games of this ilk. Now, while we're playing through this, I will zoom down with the camera into the specific areas that we're talking about, just so you guys can see it a little bit easier. But with something like this, I like the top-down view. It just makes it easier for me when it comes to filming. Like I said, I can zoom to the areas that you need to see, and it frees up both my hands to do the game stuff rather than having to hold the camera and bounce around all the time. We're going to run some missions with our Type 9B U-boat that does become available. You can see here, becomes available on April 1940. There is a decent selection of U-boats for this one. There's 8 that you have to choose from. Actually, let me grab them. So besides the Type 9B and the one that's on the other side that I'm not going to show you because I can't remember it and I'm not going to rip all the counters off, we have the Type 7C, and this is a flak one. This one actually doesn't come available until like the very tail end of the log chart. Let's see. Yeah, you can only do like 1 mission with it on this. And they said in the designer notes that they included it basically so you could use it with the expansion. So this is more of something you would use with the Hunted, right? So honestly, thinking about it, I could have seen them more of just releasing the Hunters Hunted together, having it as a 1 box set instead of having to get both separately. But there is the boon that you can just buy 1 box and you get it relatively cheap. I mean, this costs about $30 depending on where you get it. maybe 40 at the high end, so it's not an overly expensive game. And if you have a preference between early and latter part, but I really kind of would like to see them do at least a box set at some point where they've got both games just in the same box, all the U-boats there, patrol log design to have it played through the entirety of the war. That way you don't have to buy 2 boxes for it. But it's really not a stickler. It's not a big deal, with them not doing it. But yeah, we've got the Type 7C flak, which is cool because it's got a bunch of flak guns. It doesn't have a whole lot of torpedoes. Just a few that it actually gets to carry with it. It's big on flak. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe they've got some air missions going on. Type 7D, which has a lot of flak weapons of its own. It's got some mines too that can deploy. A lot more aft torpedoes on some of these latter U-boats. Let's see, this one available. This one's right after the one I'm playing. This is available. Mine's available in April 1940. This one's available in October 1940, Type 7C. And you can see there's not a huge difference. It just tends to be how many torpedoes they can carry, what areas they primarily go to, things of that nature. Also have the Type 7B. This one's available in September of 1939, so one of the earlier ones. Type 9C available May 1941. And Type 7A available September 1939. So which one is the earliest? Is it... It looks like these two are both equally the earliest. Type 7A and B are both available in September of 1939. So if you want to start at the very beginning, you could start with the Hunters, one of these two submarines, and then play through into the Hunted. And there are rules in the game to upgrade your U-boat if you wish and try to get a better one later on. But if you wanted to, you could start with one of these U-boats and sail it through until the end of the war, if you make it, obviously, if you don't get killed off along the way, which more than likely would happen. So carrying on with our U-boat mat here, just to point out the items on it real quick for those who don't know. You got your rank here at the top left. Right to the right of that, it's its torpedo load, what it generally carries, and how you can adjust it. Honestly, I was thinking about house ruling that stuff and saying, nope, I'm just going to carry everything because I like the steam torpedoes. I don't really want to have any of the electrics, but I was like, nah, I'll stick with the rules on it. So I did adjust it by 4, and it's supposed to have 12 steam, 10 electric, and I bumped it up to 16 of the steam and then 6 of the electric, and I just put them all aft. So on the off chance that I do have to fire electrics, I can just fire from the aft instead of the forward, and then I put the extra couple down here in the reloads. I don't plan on using them a whole lot in my missions. Again, name and when it's available, the training level of your crew, which can change. There's a little random event box up here to the right that can come into play depending on what happens during the course of your game. Your forward torpedo tubes, which do start filled. You see I've got 4 steam over here. Got the electrics on the aft. Deck gun. Ooh, I forgot to grab the ammo for the deck gun. So let's do that real quick. You guys can see. The ammo counters have a 2 on one side and a 1 on the other. This one only has 5 ammo, so I will put it just like that. 2 counters with 2, 1 counter with 1. And it's my 10.5 centimeter deck gun that I get to fire at unescorted targets. You do have flat guns that can be used, unlimited ammo, little infinity symbol on it, aft torpedoes. I've got my little counters here, and you guys can see, if that is zooming in enough there for you, that I did clip these counters. That's one of my little irritations with it, is that it doesn't have the pre-rounded counters, and I've gotten kind of spoiled by that. Most of the games now do have pre-rounded counters, but I did have to clip these, so just keep that in mind. They don't look bad. It's a GMT game, so obviously it's not going to look bad if it's not clipped, but they look so much better if you clip them. And put it down in the comments. Tell me what you guys think about what cutter is the best. I use that high-end one, the one everyone uses for clipping, for cutting, but some people still swear by fingernail clippers or the smaller, cheaper version of it. Can't remember the name of the damn company that does it. We were talking about that on Whiskey Charlie the other night. Me and Mo and Dan and Kev and Ard Wolf actually had joined us. That was cool too. we're talking about it. So put down your preference for cutters down below. Let's see who likes what. Right below that, we've got our damage checks, hull and flooding, and engine damage, other types of damage that you can take. So as your U-boat does take damage, you can put your damage markers in here and keep track of what happens. There's a little box where you keep track of your U-boat when it's in port. You can put that here, over on the other map, either way. And then again, over here is the patrols, which are the same here as they are here, right? No difference. It's just more thematic, I think, over here. Crew status down here at the bottom right. So if your crew gets wounded throughout the mission, this is where you're going to keep track of that. And then over here on our left, we've got our combat mat. We'll get into this more specifically as we play into the game and you guys see what's going on. But this is where you're going to keep track of the combat as it actually goes on, whether it's day, night, what range you want to attack, how many hits you get, what type of targets you run into, all that other good stuff. Okay, one last thing before we get started. I did go ahead and set out a few of the counters that I hadn't set out just yet to get ready. So take a few small, large, tanker, freighters, all the other good stuff. Set it to the side of your mat so you'll be able to easily place those onto the combat mat when you do encounter them. Now I am going to use one of the optional rules in this game that does reduce it when you're doing a convoy. So let's say we encountered a convoy. Instead of rolling for 4 contacts, I'm only going to roll for 3. And they were saying that most of the time they found that when the game was being play tested, most people never went after the 4th contact. They very rarely attacked it. They usually only went after the 3 at most, if not 1 or 2. So you can play it to where when you roll for a convoy, you just go for 3 targets instead of 4. I'm going to do that because that will save me time when we're doing this part of the game. So right here are Hunter's Patrol Log. This is where you're going to keep track of all your missions, where you're going on your patrols, what targets you encounter, and then total tonnage sunk. Really cool part of the game. And this is really what I think ties it together, right? Because so many... and it broke that on me. So many games when you're playing it, you don't have kind of like a log or a picture that kind of builds as you play over time. So with this, you could keep the box with you if you're on business trips or something like that. And then you slowly fill out your sheets as you run the missions, you refit your submarine, you keep going. And then by the time you get done, you could be looking at it and go, wow, I sank all this tonnage and I took out all these ships. Or, I ended up getting killed in 42 and, see if you can beat your previous best. That's just awesome, right? I love how they include this in there. You can scan and make copies, but they include a buttload with all their games. I think it's the same each. Yeah, it's the same front and back. So that's awesome as well. You can use one side, flip over, use the next side. Really efficient. I have marked April 1940 as my starting spot. Just put a little line next to it just to make sure I didn't start writing up here because my submarine wasn't available until then. So we're going to start with that mission. So, similar to so many other games of this ilk, right, we're going to be rolling on our charts. Now, the good thing is there's not a buttload of charts. So this isn't kind of like Target for Today or, I can't remember the name of the other one that's along that. The air power ones, they tend to have a lot more charts. It's more like a book that you're kind of working your way through. I like how this is just a handful of player aids that you work your way through. It's not that hard if you've played one of these games. Generally, you know how to play the others. I just had to kind of read over the rule book as a quick refresher for the game since I do have a lot of experience with Silent Victory, and I'm sure most of you guys are in the same boat. So we're going to be starting, and sometimes, now this is just me, all right, not the rules of the game, but sometimes I pick where I want to go. Like I'm the commandant and I'm assigning myself just if I want to try an area I haven't tried before. I don't personally think there's anything wrong with you picking your assignment if you want to, right? But the general gist is you're going to roll a 2d12 depending on what time frame you're in, and it's going to tell you where you're going to go. So you see we're in 1940, April to June, and this can send us to the Spanish coast, to Norway, the British Isles for a mine laying mission. A lot of British Isles are there in the middle, Norway or West Africa. There are special circumstances, and they've got those annotated down where things could possibly be different. Okay, so we're ready to jump onto our assignment, and that's where we're going to do our patrol logs, and we'll roll our 2d6 here. But something that I was just looking at, and it's kind of got me confused. I hate to admit this, but I'm a little thrown, and I was reading the rule book to try to figure this out, and I can't get a good idea of it. So I feel like I'm missing something here, and I'm afraid it's something simple and stupid, but I don't know. All right, so down over here on our patrols, this actually shows something that's different on the map. And I looked just to make sure that I've got the right map, and I do. This one shows on the top left that it's for certain U-boats. It's for the U-boat that I'm using. So that's fine. We're good there. But for example, like British Isles, which is one of the bigger ones that you could get, right? So our odds of getting British Isles are pretty large. Here it shows transit, British Isles, 1-1, 2 of them, 1-1, transit, back, which is pretty typical for a patrol. But I'm looking on this map, and it's not the same. Like, it's different. And I'm like, okay, you know, what's the deal here? What's going on here? Because when we're looking at the British Isles over here, the only British Isles that's on here, it's the only British Isles. These are all ×2. So there's 4 boxes that are ×2, which is 2 more encounters than here. So I've got British Isles here and then British Isles here. This is, a different type, like the special missions. So there's 2 of those, but these still have the same amount listed down. You would just have like a special mission involved with mine laying over here. But this shows something different. So maybe the map is just supposed to be different. So you just decide which one you want to go with. So if you want to do these patrols or you want to do these patrols. I'll stick with the map for now, but you guys let me know if I'm off. I'm reading that wrong. But over here it says, British Isles ×2, ×2, ×2, ×2. And I just don't get it, Oh, okay. We're not going to sweat it. We're going to just roll, and we're going to go with this. All right, so let's roll our 2d6, see what our patrol's going to be. We got a 4, which is British Isles. So I told you, more than likely we're going to end up getting the British Isles. Not a huge deal. All right, so forgive my crappy handwriting, but you see patrol, British Isles, wrote it down, so we're good to go. And I will take my little marker here for my guy. Now, it said I had to go through a certain bay. Okay, so the BOB, the Bay of Brisbane, I think is what this is. So we'll go to this transit box and then this transit box and then go up into our patrol. So we're going to be going right here and then flicking on around. Now, this is where the game actually starts to kick off. So this is where we're rolling for our encounters, our E1 chart, right? And you're going to look at this, and it's going to tell you just depending on what area you're in. So transit box, which there's plenty of transit box. The only thing that you can generally encounter there is more likely aircraft, but you can encounter a ship. But the first time you roll a natural 12, you have to have a random event happen, so that could end up being one of numerous things. And then you see Arctic, Atlantic, British Isles, Caribbean. So once we get through our transit boxes, then we're going to start rolling on this British Isles column, and that's where we're going to potentially encounter things. So ships and their escorts, convoys, aircraft, even potentially a capital ship. And we're going to go through each one of those boxes, seeing if we can encounter something and, get stuck in. Okay, so let's roll for our first transit box, see if we encounter anything. We do not. We already know a 7 isn't going to be anything on this. We'll roll for our second transit box. Do we encounter anything? Another 7. No. So we are good for our first 2 transit boxes, which means, boop, boom, we are into the British Isles proper. Again, remember, like I said, you can keep track of it here on the map or on the patrols, but evidently they're different. So definitely make that choice before you get started and stick with one or the other. Okay, so I'm going to do this exactly as it says. I'm going to do ×2. So what this means is I'm going to roll on this encounter chart twice per box that I'm in and then move my ship through. Now, there is something that I would like to have for the hunters, and we were actually talking about this on Whiskey Charlie the other day, And that's like how Silent Victory has a online website app deal. And it's not something you can download, but it's like this WebXL whatever app. You just go to the website and it handles all of this stuff for you. So the rolling for encounters and the generation of enemy ships. So when you're rolling on these charts to see what it is you've actually encountered and how much tonnage it has, it handles all that for you. You still have to do this whole portion of the game yourself, which is fine. That's the big portion that I want to handle anyway. But the time-consuming rolling, that's taken care of for you by the app. And I really wish it existed for the hunters. I looked, I couldn't find anything. You guys let me know down in the comments if there is something like that, because I would very much love to have that automated for me. Now, I know some old school people, like I said, we were talking about this, they prefer the rolling. For them, that, makes the game come more alive. I think it's to each their own. It can go either way. For me, I like having some of that just nitty-gritty, fiddly stuff taken care of so I can get right into how many torpedoes do I want to throw at these guys to try to take them out. Okay, so since we're in the British Isles, we're going to do our first encounter and see if we get something. We got a 5, and a 5 on our chart is perfect. A single ship. That is great for us to start with on this, because that means there is no escort, and I can go for just one easy target, try to blow it out real quick, and actually show you guys a lot of different stuff that goes on with this game. So now let's go to our generation. Wait, where's that little chart? Okay, so one of the first things that we got to do is determine the ship size that we're going to go against. We're going to roll 1d6 per ship. Since we only have a single ship, we only have to roll 1d6. And looking at our chart, 1 to 3 small freighter, 4 to 5 is a large freighter, 6 is a tanker. So let's see what we have encountered. We got a 1. I don't want a small ship, I want a big ship. That's all right. We're going to blow this little a-hole out of the water. All right, so tanker target, small freighter. So with this, you see there's a huge selection of numbers that can possibly be here. Wait, is it just the 1 to 20? Oh, this is different than how the others did. The tanker can be that. Oh, North American target roster. All right, so for North American, you're going to do this, and small and large for the other areas are going to be here. So I was thinking it should be through 100, but I was like, where the hell are the rest? All right, so we have 0 through 100 of targets to choose from. You do have 2 10-sided die, so you're going to pick 1 to be your 10s, 1 to be your 1s. So our white will be our 10s, and our black will be our 1s, and that's what we're going to use to determine what small freighter we have encountered. That will tell us what size it is to put on our little chart here. So let's roll. We got a 35. 35 is Esmond at 5,000 tons. So pretty decent. And looking at our target, we should only have 2 damage, I believe, for it. Small freighter, yep, is going to go right here. And depending on their size is going to determine how much damage they can take. So capital ships can take the most. Very large tankers and freighters can take up to 4 damage. So it'd be 3 or 4 damage for them. 2 damage for a small freighter like this, and so on. Now, if we were doing a convoy, have more ships, we would continue to roll on this. Like I said, I'm going to be doing the optional rule where I'd only do 3 instead of 4 for a convoy, but now we're good on that, and we have to determine whether it's going to be night or day. We don't have to put any escort, which is great. I love how easy start for this. So let's determine night or day, which I got to show you guys the chart. Night or day, 1 to 3 day, 4 to 6 night. You can try to wait to see if you get night. It's day, figures. But that's actually not going to hurt us because there's no escort to escape. So I'm not going to worry about trying to have anything escape. We also have to decide whether or not we're going to be surfaced or submerged. We're definitely going to be surfaced since you can only use your deck guns if the ship is unescorted. I'm definitely going to use my deck guns in this to try to blow this guy away with a couple of rounds because I don't know that I'll get to use it later on. And let's see, what else? Range, we will definitely go with close range. There's no reason to back off. He's got nothing that's going to come after us. You see this list down, combat versus escorted ships versus unescorted. It's it's an open target gallery. We can just blow them apart. Okay, so we are ready to start assigning our attacks and doing all the other good stuff. We've got this ready to go, our little chart set up with our ship, all the different informational stuff, day, surfaced, ranged. We would put the escort and their type if you were doing that rule, because the escorts and the aircraft can be trained or green as well if you want to get into the minutia, or you can just have them be generic escort, you know. So we've got our one ship here. Now we need to determine what we're going to fire at it. I definitely want to fire a couple of deck gun rounds at it and probably a few torpedoes. Now you can't fire your reloads, but you can fire everything in your tubes at it. If you do fire both tubes, like front and back, then that could potentially hurt you later on in the escort detection, but it's not a huge deal for us now, so I'll probably fire some both at them, maybe. Yep. I was looking at die roll modifiers. Firing forward and aft will get you a bad modifier when it comes to the escort detection. But since we don't have to worry about that, I see no reason not to burn off some of these electric torpedoes. Put them down here where you're firing at them. Let's see. What do we want to do? What do you think? Couple of steam. Yeah, let's go all out. We don't care. And do a couple of deck gun rounds too. So, and we'll actually grab one more of these and flip that over so I can have two individual counters. So we're doing two of each. I think that's a nice spread. 2 electric, 2 steam, and 2 deck gun rounds at him. This is way more than we need to kill the guy, but I want to show you guys everything. All right, so when you're looking at your chart here, you're going to look at your range to determine what your hit number is, and then you're going to apply any modifiers that apply to it, obviously. We do have a modifier of unescorted surface torpedo, so we're getting a -1 right off the bat, which is freaking awesome. We don't have anything else benefiting us or hurting us. If we were firing at medium or long range, our electric torpedoes would actually get a penalty because they're a little slower. The premise with the torpedoes is the steam torpedoes were faster, but they left bubbles and they made the U-boat easier to detect. The electric torpedoes were slower, but didn't have any bubbles, so they couldn't trace the bubbles back to the ship. So that's where those little things came into it. For us, we're just going to get a -1 since we are at close range. That means we need a 9 or less, which is freaking excellent. And this is for both the torpedo and the deck gun. So we're going to roll a 2d6 roll for each one of these that we've got over here. All our torpedoes, all of our deck guns, see if they hit. But then we've got to do dud checks on our torpedoes, which kind of sucks. All right, so let's roll for them. 9 or under. Yep, that is a hit. And the way I do it, you guys don't have to do it this way, but I do it this way, is for my torpedoes, I slide them up when they're hits, push them off to the side when they're misses, and then when I do the dud checks, I slide them back down for duds. So I end up with a little clump here at the end that shows me how many actually hit and weren't duds. All right, real easy thing for me to keep track of. So next one, he hits. He does hit. Woo, that was close. All right, so we've already got a couple of torpedoes into him. That's good. Let's do our first deck gun. Oh, no, a miss. That's horrible. No more whammies, no more misses. Come on, deck gun. You got a hit for these. Yep, that's a hit. That's good. That's a guarantee because deck guns can't be duds. So that's awesome. And 10, that's another miss. Ooh. Don't miss. I want one more of these to hit because those torpedoes can be duds. Oh, that was close. I saw that 6. All right, so we got 4 hits on them. That's excellent. We can go ahead and pull this ammo down because we know that that's not going to be a dud. Now we do have to look over here on our torpedo dud chart and look at what year it is. We're in 1940, early part of it. So it is 1 to 2 on our steam torpedoes, 1 to 3 on our electric torpedoes. That kind of sucks, but that's all right. At least our steam, the 2 that we got the hit with, are just 1 to 2. So first steam, is it a dud? It is not. So slide this back down. And that means we've already killed the torpedo, the freighter, because it can only take 2 damage. And we've done 2 damage at minimum to him at this point. But let's keep going here. Checking the second torpedo. And that is not a dud, dirt. And now for our electric will be a dud and a 1 to 3. Reroll it back in there, and it is a dud. So you see why you need to fire a whole bunch of stuff at a ship. And this is why I think partly too they do leave that optional rule in there about not doing 4 ships for the convoys, right? Because if you're having so many targets to fire at, I mean, come on. At this point, I could only at most have added 5 more counters, rather, if I included the deck gun shots, and that's only if it's unescorted. So if it's escorted, at most I could fire 6 torpedoes, right? When you account for the potential duds, which is roughly a third of your torpedoes are going to be duds at minimum, you're firing most of your stuff at 1, maybe 2 ships. So having 4 targets, you really don't need it. Now, once we've figured out all of our torpedoes that have not only hit, but actually been not duds, that's when you're going to go to your attack damage chart. Deck gun, and then torpedoes. Our deck gun can do at most 2 damage, but yeah. If it's a 105 millimeter deck gun, you get a -1 to the roll. Ours, I don't know, is it? Yes, it is 105 millimeters. Yay, so we get a -1 to our roll. So let's see what we get. We can potentially get a 0 here. Basically, we need a 2 or under to do 2 damage with this thing. So let's see what we get. Oh, we got 2 damage with it. Look at that. I love it. Bam. Our deck gun did 2 damage and is enough to actually sink the target. But just so you guys can see it, let's look at our torpedoes. Nothing else to look at here as far as modifiers. So basically 4 or more on the dice will get you 1 damage. So you're really hoping for 1, 2s, or 3s to get big damage from your torpedoes. First torpedo did 1 damage, and second torpedo did 2 damage, I think. Yep, 2 damage. So these 2 amongst themselves were 3 damage. So we in total did 5 damage to this small freighter. That's more than enough to kill a capital ship. So that's actually pretty freaking awesome right there. Unfortunately, this was just a small freighter, so just 1 little target, but 5,000 tons is not bad. Or as my wife says in her guesses video, the tonnage. I was having fun picking at her. All right, so once you have taken out whoever you're going to take out, you're going to jot that down on your little sheet here. So we are going to write S freighter in my crappy ass handwriting, if you guys could read it. And if you sink them, you write you circle it. And I write a little 5,000 next to it, so I know how much tonnage was on that thing. So I'll add that up at the end when we get through all of our total patrols for the amount of tonnage that you sink. So 5,000 is not too bad. It's a decent little start. Now, had there been more ships, like 2, 3 ships to encounter on this, I would have probably divided my shots between a couple of ships, or maybe if there was one real big freighter, just focused on the one freighter to try to definitely knock it out and get a whole lot of points. Because you can think of the tonnage as basically your points. You're trying to sink as much as possible. These have been spent, and we can rearm once we get back to port. But while we're out, we are not rearming. Now, I think there actually is an optional rule for rearming while at sea, but we're not worried about that right now. Once your combat is done, though, and our combat is done, we can slide all these little markers off. You can go ahead and rearm and refit any of your torpedoes back into their tubes. So you guys see at this point, I am good to go. I only have 3 deck gun rounds left. And actually, we'll go ahead and flip this over to a 1 and just put this as 1. I like just having the individual counters. It's just kind of a me thing. That way we know exactly what we got left. But I wasn't planning on using those electric torpedoes, but that works great for unescorted targets. Now, had that ship been escorted, we would have had a whole extra step to handle where you have to check to see if you're detected and then any attacks they make and potential damage to your own ship. So great being able to take that out. It's free damage. All right, but we'll pause here and we'll pick up on the on part 2, and we'll run a few more transit boxes, or travel boxes rather. Let you guys see a few more torpedoes go down range, see if we can get a convoy and maybe a capital ship to take out, and then show you guys how you head back into port and handle all that other good stuff when it comes to rearming and refitting. All right, if you guys have any questions or any of that other good stuff, feel free to put it down below. Y'all take care. I'll catch you in the next one.